Hello, this is Gino Perrotte, Culture and Communication Strategist. I want to go more in depth with you on some of the 10 channels of nonverbal communication. So in this video, I'm going to be reviewing the eye behaviors and give you some details that will help you better understand how eye contact is connected to building personal brand. To begin, we should understand that eye contact is the main channel that we use to open and close interaction. So if you want to speak to somebody who's across the room, typically you'll look over in their direction, and if they meet your eye contact, that's a good indication that the person is willing to interact with you. Knowing this, if you see somebody looking at you from across the room and you do not want to interact with them, you typically will avoid the eye contact, and that becomes an effective way to send the message that you do not want to communicate. This is a popular one here on the subways in New York City, where we have a lot of people moving through the train cars asking for money. So an effective technique that you see a lot of train riders use is, as the people come through and ask for the money, that they just avoid eye contact. And then the people asking don't bother to interact anymore. They just move on to the next car. And eye contact was the way that the message was sent, that the people were not willing to interact. We both listen and speak with our eyes. And what I mean by that is we do eye behaviors both when we are listening and we are speaking. It was interesting. I did an informal Facebook study, and I reached out to my network a few years ago when I was writing my book From Student to Professional, and I asked them what were the most important nonverbal behaviors that somebody who was listening to you did while you were speaking that make you felt valued. That you felt valued by that person. And the number one response was consistently eye contact. That the speaker felt valued when the listener gave them good eye contact. So when you're listening, nonverbal communication studies does find that we tend to look at the speaker more than when we are the speaker. So what that means is listeners truly are listening with their eyes and ears. You're listening with your ears, obviously, for the words, but you're listening with your eyes to see the facial expressions of the speaker, their gestures, their body movements, what they're wearing, and what they're not doing in any of those categories, because the absence of things can be a really important message as well. And when we become the speaker, we tend to have the freedom to use our eyes to look around the room, to be expressive, and then we meet the eyes of our listener every now and then to make sure that they understand and to make sure that they are still listening. So again, listeners tend to focus their eyes on the speaker in order to fully take in the message, and then the speaker tends to have more freedom to be able to use their eyes to actually become part of the message and to express with the eyes. What your parents taught you about staring was correct. It is rude to stare. Staring is different than what we call in nonverbal communication gazing. Gazing is behavior that happens between people and usually looking at each other in the facial region. Kind of what I just talked about with listening and speaking. So when somebody's speaking and we're listening to them, we typically look at their face. Staring, on the other hand, is more related to my first example with opening and closing the invitation to interact. If you're the person looking over, using your eye contact to try to invite somebody into an interaction, and they don't return that eye contact, then you should look away. You're supposed to interpret their lack of eye contact as a message that they don't want to communicate. If you continue to look at them, then it becomes a stare because they have sent the message that they don't want to interact, but you keep persisting in trying to get that interaction. And that's why it's interpreted as rude. You do want to blink, though. It's normal when you are talking to have blinking motions in your eyes. That's going to vary from person to person for how often somebody blinks, but you probably interacted with someone in the past that it just felt a little off that they don't blink frequently enough, and then it makes you start wondering what's up about what they're trying to say. Are they telling the truth? Should you believe what this person's saying? So you do want to blink. Finally, the tip that I want to offer is really important in intercultural interaction. I've worked with a variety of students, and a good number of those students have been directly from China, studying here at U.S. universities. And the Chinese culture teaches different eye contact rules than the U.S. culture does. So in the United States, what I teach is it's common as a speaker to hold eye contact with your audience for 2 to 3 seconds. So you give that eye contact for 2 to 3 seconds with each person sitting in your audience. That's the right amount of time to really build a rapport with each individual and connect with them. They will feel like you are talking directly to them without it getting awkward. If you hold it for less than that, then it's not enough time to really draw that person in and connect. If you start holding it for longer than 3 seconds with one individual in the audience, it gives the impression that you are directly addressing that individual person. And if they raise their hand to ask you a question, then it's appropriate to hold prolonged eye contact with them. But if you're just giving a general presentation and not speaking, directly to one person, then you should be giving that 2 to 3 seconds of eye contact with each audience member to really connect. So eye behaviors are an important function of nonverbal communication, and hopefully now you better understand how they build the impressions that create our personal brand.